So, Joe, you said earlier that we are becoming an intelligent driven species that disregard wisdom. You also said that there is a clear difference between intelligence and wisdom. Could you please tell us more about your thoughts about this?
Yes, I can give a simplistic explanation of intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence begins with the act of taking in information and connecting it with the pre existing information in the memory. And if the two are compatible, they form knowledge. The second step is to take the knowledge and relate it to actual life experience. When a link is established between knowledge and experience, you build intelligence. And this is a faculty that can be used to detect and solve life problems. Wisdom, on the other hand, is the pinnacle of human excellence. It's more complex than intelligence because it goes beyond just relating knowledge to life experience. It also involves understanding the basis of the relationship between knowledge and life experience. The X factor that enables one to understand the basis of this relationship is love. Not love in a sensual sense, but love as in logos, which is the principle of divine reason and creative order. Without this unconditional love, the most intelligent person cannot be wise.
And can you further explain the interrelationships between information, knowledge, intelligence, and wisdom?
Okay, um, let me try to explain this with a real life example, which is the interrelationship between information, knowledge, and intelligence and wisdom, right? Okay, I will use a real life example. When I ask my students who are between the ages of 12 and 16 what their thoughts are about war, they have the consensus view of war as something inhumane and destructive to civilization. They also believe that war is something that happens in less developed parts of the world, such as the Middle East or Africa, because people are not able to dialogue and come to terms with their differences. Sounds sensible. However, not to the fault of my students, these answers are neither intelligent nor wise for several reasons. One, their information on war is very limited. As a result, their knowledge of war is not very deep. Secondly, because of their young age, their knowledge of war is not deeply related to actual life experiences. Now, if you were ask me at my age, with my knowledge and life experience, to comment intelligently on war, I would say that war has been the building blocks of every prosperous civilization in human history because war, not collaboration, has been the way to amass resources that are necessary to build and sustain an empire and its civilizations. Ancient civilizations such as the Indians, Persians, Egyptians, Greeks, Romans all engaged in wars. In the current Western civilization and its empires were built from imperialistic wars. Even the gentle nation of Sweden was a colonizing power because in the 17th and 18th centuries, it did hold colonies in the region of Delaware, which is North America, and also on the island of St. Bart's in the Caribbean, where slaves from Africa were actually traded duty free to enrich King Gustav III and the nation of Sweden. Furthermore, I would say that the masses do not get to decide on wars. Only a tiny fraction of the ruling minority decides on wars. And then they convince the masses to go along under the pretext of preserving freedom, ethnic purity, or some religious belief. War is strictly and purely an economic venture that's instigated by people with resources, and the only objective is to acquire more resources. Otherwise, it becomes a stupid war. But there's no such a thing, and there's no such a thing as a stupid war What is stupid is the manufactured reasons leaders give for going into war.
So then the follow-up question is, what do you think that a wise person would think about war?
Yeah, okay. A wise person will not proclaim war to be something positive or negative, but they will tell you that if you live by the sword, you will die by the sword. All empires and civilizations that were built and sustained by war eventually collapsed due to war. I'll tell you, interestingly, when a lion attacks a human being and tastes the human blood, they often put the lion down because once the lion tastes the human blood, it cannot help itself but want to taste that blood again. So when an action sets a series of events in motion, it's often difficult to reverse the course.
Yeah. And could you please also tell us more about how does intelligence and wisdom function?
Yeah. Intelligence, both intelligence and wisdom can detect and solve life problems, but in very different ways. When intelligence detects the problem, it treats the problem as an adversary, something to overcome. And in doing so, you create the mentality of the end justifying the means. And the downside is you often solve one problem only to create a new one or two. For example, if you think about the current intelligence-based global economic system that we have, in feeding the ego of human desire, has created a monstrous consumer culture that is destroying the environment. And the genie of consumerism isn't going to go back in the bottle unless we re-educate and reorganize the current economic system. Wisdom, on the other hand, sees life problems as part of the whole rather than something one should overcome. When wisdom is used to tend to a problem, the solution is often complementary and harmonizing to life. Had we have a wisdom-based economic system, it will not feed the human desire at the expense of the environment, because we will understand that human desire is a black hole that can never be filled, and it's not meant to be filled. The purpose of human desire is to keep human beings interested and enthusiastic about life. Interest keeps us curious, and through curiosity we evolve.
So between wisdom and intelligence, does one serve humans better than the other?
No, they both have their place in the human civilization, but I would say that it's better to make a decision with wisdom. And once the decision is made, you execute through intelligence. However, I'm afraid that as long as economic profit remains the primary measure of success and a gateway to perceived human happiness, wisdom will not be a big part of human decision making anytime soon. And we ought to be very careful about that, because if we obsess with intelligence, if we lean on intelligence alone, as George Orwell expressed in his classic novel Animal Farm, the power of intelligence can be used to suppress and control others. However, because there's nothing that deters an intelligent person from becoming a tyrant. However, when you think about wisdom, the unconditional love that is implicit in wisdom deters a wise person from tyranny.